They could double our wages, and they could not raise the price of vehicles, and they would still make billions of dollars.
Revving up and walking out. U.S. auto workers on the picket line. The effects here at home and when strike action could be seen on this side of the border. Good evening. It's the first time union members have walked out on all of the so-called Big Three simultaneously.
Canadian workers also facing a deadline, and it's fast approaching. CTV's Allison Hurst is in studio tonight with our top story. Allison.
Thank you, Michelle. Yeah, many of the core issues in the labor dispute are familiar, mainly salary and benefits. But what's also lurking in the background and a concern in negotiations happening here in Canada, too, is the transition to electric vehicles.
Mighty, mighty union.
Almost 13,000 U.S. auto workers have walked off the job.
Get this contract settled today so we can get our family fed.
In an historic simultaneous strike at the Big Three American automakers.
It feels good that we're actually out here standing up for what we deserve.
As soon as the midnight deadline passed, workers walked out, targeting 3 facilities, a Ford plant in Michigan, GM plant in Missouri, and an Ohio plant for Chrysler owner Stellantis.
We're ready for this strike to last as long as it takes.
Ford offered a 20% wage increase, the most in the company's history, but the union wants a 40% increase and better benefits.
So they waited till the last week to want to get down to business. Shame on them, and what they're saying is complete BS.
Negotiating isn't saying, here's the choice. Pay everyone like I asked, and then you can go bankrupt. That's not a choice. That's not negotiating.
U.S. President Joe Biden is sending 2 members of his team to support talks.
Workers deserve a fair share of the benefits they help create for an enterprise.
The job action is being watched carefully north of the border.
Of the $35 billion in parts that Canadian automotive suppliers ship every year, 48% of them go into the U.S. If we get into Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday, you're very likely looking at partial shutdowns and idling of Canadian suppliers.
It comes as Canada's Auto Workers Union is negotiating with Ford Canada. The union has rejected 2 offers, but they plan to be at the table all weekend.
Pensions, which is our #1 priority in these talks, and 2, what occurs during the EV transition and making sure we get this right and making sure our members are protected during that process.
The Unifor president sent a letter to UAW today saying, "We stand in solidarity with UAW members as you exercise your fundamental right to strike."
The UAW's militancy is likely to have a positive spillover effect for Unifor in the sense that it will help bolster that union's bargaining demands north of the border.
Where there's still hope, they'll strike a deal by Monday's deadline. Contract talks are set to resume tomorrow in the U.S., while here at home, both sides remain at the table and plan to stay through the weekend to try for a deal before the current collective agreement expires Monday. Reporting live, I'm Allison Hurst. Michelle, back to you.
Thank you, Allison. And straight ahead, Toronto testing out parking that only accepts mobile payment. But what happens if a driver doesn't have a smartphone? Natalie Johnson looks into the questions and concerns. Who tipped off developers that the Greenbelt was up for grabs? That's one major outstanding question in the investigations that have swirled about the land swap, which raised property values for a connected few by billions of dollars.
As CTV's John Woodward reports, the Integrity Commissioner explored a connection between one developer and the Premier.
When I'm on the site, I can even vision homes, buildings, or the entire community, and I could even feel the parks and the kids playing in the park. That's what you have to dream about.
Starting in 2017, one of developer Shakir Rahmatullah's dreams has been to get this property on McCowan Road and 19th Avenue in Markham out of the province's protected Greenbelt, land preserved for agriculture and to prevent urban sprawl. Integrity Commissioner J. David Wake found Rahmatullah had a hand in a flurry of proposals for that property, as well as 2 others nearby in September of last year. In letters to Housing Ministry staff, lawyers from Denton's wrote, "We understand this information was requested by the ministry." But Wake could find no records of any contact from anyone at the Housing Ministry. When asked by the Integrity Commissioner, Rahmatullah said he believed the tip came through his lawyers. Those lawyers said they were acting on his instructions. When he returned for a second interview with the Integrity Commissioner, Rahmatullah said they filed a Freedom of Information request. But that request hadn't come back by the time the proposals were sent. "I find that Mr. Rahmatullah's position strains credulity," Wake wrote in his report, saying he can't make a finding as to who prompted Rahmatullah to ask for land to be removed. But I find it is more likely than not that someone did.
Is how much of this is insider dealing? How much of this is preferential treatment? That's what we're hoping to learn. I've not seen anything like this in Ontario.
Wake said Ramatula attended the Premier's daughter's wedding in the summer of 2022. For some, the fact that he was the only developer who had lands removed from the Greenbelt who attended the Premier's daughter's wedding is probably enough to point the finger at the Premier. But this fanciful connection is not sufficient for me to leap to that conclusion. The scandal has prompted the resignation of the Housing Minister and his Chief of Staff. The Premier's staff said the Integrity Commissioner clearly stated in his report that the Premier and the Premier's office had no involvement in the process or of specific site selection.
It's not going to go away.
Markham councillor Karen Ray said there are too many questions. This week, a Liberal motion for testimony in a legislature committee was shut down by the government's majority. Ray thinks there should be a public inquiry.
Do an inquiry into what happened, put the land back into the Greenbelt, and let's all move on.
Ramatula himself responded to our emails saying, with regards to a small portion of the land removed from the Greenbelt, it is important to clarify that this request was made to the province in 2017. One of the best ways to build housing in Ontario is to maximize infrastructure investment we already have in place, and our intention was to do that so we could provide more housing for people in Ontario. He didn't answer our follow-up questions about why his timing was so good when he tried to remove the land again in 2022. John Woodward, CTV News.
There were some tense moments in the West End this morning as police responded to a threat made against a high school. The situation unfolded at around 10:30 at Western Technical High School near Runnymede and Annette Street. Investigators say the school was targeted in that unspecified threat. Within a half hour, police reported a suspect had been found and taken into custody. So far, there's been no word on any potential charges.
An update on a violent TTC incident we mentioned yesterday. A suspect is now in custody after allegedly attacking fellow bus passengers with bricks. Thursday morning near Dufferin and Eglinton, police say a man got into a dispute with other people on board. He then allegedly got off the bus, armed himself with bricks, and returned to throw them at passengers. One man was hit in the head and suffered non-life-threatening injuries. 28-year-old LJ Golden of Toronto was arrested on charges including assault with a weapon and failed to comply with probation order.
Also on the TTC, police are looking for this suspect in a sexual assault investigation on the subway. On the night of August 20th, police say he assaulted a person sitting next to him on a westbound Line 2 train ride from Victoria Park Station to Dundas West. If you recognize him, you're asked to contact police. Coming up, how's this for a strange theft investigation? Trying to take off with a plane. That's just ahead.
But first, let's take a look outside. It's Friday. The sky is clear and the sun is shining. We're looking at similar conditions for Saturday as well. Our Lindsay Morrison is here with a look at what's going on out there. And this weekend is the last weekend of summer.
It is officially, Michelle, but you know what? We have a pretty good one in store. And much of next week is looking pleasant too. Temperature-wise right now, we are at 19 degrees. It is comfortable out there. It's clear. Winds right now are coming out of the south, a little light breeze, nothing too significant. We're sort of sandwiched between two low pressure systems right now, one to our west, and that cloud you see there is the outer edge, I should say, of Hurricane Lee. We don't have to worry about that storm at all. In fact, this evening is looking quite nice. Maybe you want to go for a walk or enjoy a patio. Into tomorrow, more in the way of sunshine. Things do change a little bit for Sunday. We'll talk all about it coming up in your weekend forecast. For now, Michelle, back to you.
Thanks, Lindsay. And if you're looking for something to do this weekend, Bloor West will be a popular option.
Toronto's annual Ukrainian festival is back with some added meaning for those taking part. CTV John Musselman is live with more. John.
Well, Nathan, there's already thousands of people down here on Bloor Street between Jane and Runnymede. We'll just ask Sean to zoom in here. You can see the food is being cooked up here. People are enjoying an early dinner. This is a 3-day celebration, but it's mixed with some anxiety about what's going on in Ukraine as well. Crews spent the day getting Bloor West Village ready for the biggest Ukrainian street festival in North America. More than 900,000 people are expected over the next 3 days. Music, food, amusement rides, and all kinds of vendors will set up between Runnymede and Jane Street.
Just the energy of it, the community, everybody comes out. It's always jam-packed, the stage is full, the shows are amazing, energy's up, it's just always a good time.
We just enjoy the 3 days that we're here for the Ukrainian festival.
This is a celebration of all things Ukrainian, but there is also sadness and anxiety over the war in their homeland.
We're not there, so we don't really know what they're going through, but to me and to my ancestors, to people that are Ukrainian here in Canada, there is that sadness, I guess, that pursues, but for me, it's mostly about just doing the best we can here.
The kickoff of the Ukrainian festival actually began downtown this morning with singers from the National Opera of Ukraine. It included a presentation called Ukraine, Our Home Immersive Stories. Yuri Klufis is the event organizer.
We see all this terrible stuff happening in Ukraine, and you can't give up, and nobody's giving up. But that means we need to work, we need to fight the enemy beast, and but at the same time we need to give ourselves energy to do that.
A parade will be held tomorrow from High Park to Jane Street as part of the festival activities. And here's a live shot of that barbecue again, all the food being cooked up here for thousands of people who've already showed up here on Bloor Street. Again, traffic considerations to keep in mind. Runningmead to Jane is off limits to cars for the next 3 days. Reporting live, I'm John Musselman. I'll send it back to you.
All right, thank you, John. And another reminder, Bloor Street West is closed to traffic from Jane to Runningmead until 11:59 p.m. Sunday because of the Ukrainian festival. From early Saturday until late Sunday, Roncesvalles will be closed to traffic because of the Roncesvalles Polish Festival. And the Pape Village Block Party will shut down Pape from Mortimer to Gamble Avenues from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. tomorrow.
The way you pay for on-street parking in Toronto could soon be changing.
With the city set to review whether those pay and display green P machines are worth keeping. CTV's Natalie Johnson has the details.
Paying for street parking at one of these pay and display machines could eventually become a thing of the past, as the city examines whether to remove the clunky old meters in favor of the modern mobile app.
I think they should. How come? I don't really see the purpose of it anymore, man.
I have seen some of these machines, like the credit or debit, they can be spotty.
I'm a software engineer, so everything should be online anyway.
Council is being asked to approve a one-year pilot project in which the parking machines are removed on some downtown streets to create 13 mobile pay-only zones.
There's a lot of benefits to it. You don't need to get out of your car, climb a snowbank, go over, pay, and then come back and put it in the car. You can walk and pay as you go if you're running late.
It comes as fewer and fewer people are using the physical meters to pay for their parking. When the mobile GreenP app was launched in 2016, it was used for less than half of parking transactions. Now 3/4 of parking payments are done on the app, and that number is expected to hit 85% in the next 2 years.
The areas that would be piloted as mobile-only zones are those which have a high rate of app usage, a low number of parking spots per machine, or a meter that is too old to be serviced.
I think it's reasonable to always review how we can modernize and use technology better. That being said, though, I would hope that this pilot addresses some people who are not tethered to their smartphones or may not be technologically savvy.
Indeed, some parkers argue these 2,700 machines aren't yet rusty relics.
Some people, they don't use the phones as much. That's why it's a good idea to keep it.
Well, I think it leaves people out, definitely.
Sometimes it's not, the network is down, it's frustrating. I rather have these.
But staff point out that in some cases, the physical machines are used so seldomly that the money they take in doesn't cover their costs, and that reducing reliance on parking equipment boosts parking profits for the city. Natalie Johnson, CTV News.
And as we head into the fall, the City of Toronto is holding another pothole repair blitz tomorrow. Crews will work from 6 a.m. through to 6 p.m. to try and fix as many roads as possible. The city says it does proactive daily patrols for potholes outside of these blitzes, of which there have been 6 so far this year. Since the start of 2023, crews have repaired more than 135,000 potholes.
The struggle to find housing is a top issue for so many people across Ontario.
The provincial government looking to work with local counterparts on getting their priorities in order. CTV's Queen's Park Bureau Chief Siobhan Morris is live with more on this. Siobhan.
Well, the housing minister today made good on a promise he made last week to be more transparent about the progress the government's making on implementing recommendations from a housing affordability task force. Paul Calandra is also asking cities for their input. Justin Cowan is under pressure at school and at home where units are being divvied up.
$1,500 a month for a single room and a four bedroom.
Cowan says his landlord's trying to force him and others out by slacking on maintenance in the hopes of charging more.
It's just impossible to be a student and live in Toronto.
The number of homes available to rent or buy remains far short of what's needed to bring costs down. The government says it's moved on 23 of 74 recommendations of its Housing Affordability Task Force. Their report was delivered in February 2022.
Our government is very proud of the progress that we've made so far in tackling the housing supply crisis, but we are committed to doing more.
Today, Calandra sent letters to the leaders of Ontario's 50 fastest growing communities, asking them for a thumbs up or down on all 74 recommendations and the top 5 they'd still like to be implemented. Calandra wants an answer in a month.
The results of these consultations and the housing forum that the province is holding in November will be used to inform our next housing supply action plan bill, which will be introduced in 2024.
The opposition says this is all coming too late.
Now we're in a Greenbelt crisis, we're in a corruption scandal, and finally, the Conservatives are starting to look at some solutions that we've been advocating for some time.
The government is looking at tweaks like allowing just one staircase for buildings of up to 4 stories. But for Bell, the key is
end exclusionary zoning, building more duplexes and triplexes in neighbourhoods people want to live in.
Near services and infrastructure, not on ecologically important land like the Greenbelt. Calandra says if cities don't get back to him within a month, they won't be eligible for possible funding bonuses for meeting or exceeding housing targets. Reporting live from Queen's Park, I'm Siobhan Morris. Nathan, back to you.
All right, thank you, Siobhan. With Ontario's healthcare system facing ongoing staffing shortages, advocates say now is the time for the province to take urgent action and prevent further impacts.
As a public, we have to pour on the pressure to this government to force them to take action to address this, or we are going to start to lose even more local hospitals.
When the emergency room in Minden closed, the hospital network cited staffing issues. The Ford government said it wasn't involved in that decision. The Ministry of Health has said it's taking steps to increase the hospital workforce.
They are hunkering down in Atlantic Canada.
A very big and potentially damaging storm is bearing down on the region, where people are being told to stay home.
Your actions during the storm are as important as the preparation for it. Once the storm starts, remember, please stay at home if at all possible. Nothing good can come from checking out the big waves and how strong the wind truly is. Not only are you putting yourselves at risk, but you are putting the lives of the emergency services personnel who may have to assist you.
Maritimers are getting ready as Hurricane Lee is expected to move into western Nova Scotia and southern New Brunswick tomorrow. It could be a strong post-tropical storm by then, but still close to hurricane strength as it gets near the coastline. Heavy rains, high winds, and powerful waves are expected. There's also a chance of storm surge. Lee is expected to make landfall Saturday evening, with the worst conditions lasting about 12 hours.
Across the country, Alberta's premier fought back tears during a news conference in Calgary today. Danielle Smith was discussing E. coli outbreaks at several daycares.
Right now, the most important comfort I can offer is the promise that each sick child is getting the best possible care. And I would just like to thank all of the medical professionals who have been doing everything they can to treat and to heal and to comfort these children and their families.
The provincial government will immediately provide families $2,000 for each child affected and will look into new regulations for shared kitchens and food safety. There have been 337 confirmed cases. 12 children are still in hospital.
Rescue workers in the Libyan city of Derna are struggling to cope amid the devastation following Sunday's catastrophic flooding.
More than 11,000 people are confirmed to have died. More than 10,000 others are missing. CTV's Genevieve Beauchemin reports.
Sections of the port city of Derna were sealed off, access restricted to emergency workers. This as search crews scouring the water, mud and debris for the missing have found bodies, thousands of them. But confusion and a lack of resources in the area have slowed recovery efforts and delivery of aid to survivors. Today, the World Health Organization and the Red Cross urged Libyans to stop burials in mass graves.
Dead bodies per se are not, especially after a disaster like this, are unlikely to be a health risk.
They can contaminate fresh water supplies, but the Red Cross says hasty burials leave families in anguish for years.
Bodies need to be documented and buried in labeled body bags. Graves need to be mapped so that there is record of who is buried there.
Search crews face escalating threats in nearly wiped out parts of the city. Last night we got word of a building collapsing with people inside. It's not safe, says this worker from Turkey. And there's an added threat, the dangers of unexploded ordnances stirred up by Storm Daniel.
This is a country that suffered from obviously years of conflict and violence and the ripple effects of that protracted conflict.
Among survivors who watched waves storm their homes and wash away loved ones, anger is growing at the government. My son, a doctor who graduated this year, my daughter, her husband, and my grandchild are all missing, says this man. We put a lot of blame on the authorities. Much of the damage, the deaths, say many in Derna, came in the wake of the collapse of two dams. And that despite years of warnings. This is a news report from January 2020. Residents then said they feared a humanitarian disaster because of poor maintenance and neglect. And now they say this disaster is a symptom of the country's political dysfunction and division. But at Friday prayers, some had words of gratitude for rare moments of unity now. We appreciate how people stand with us from the eastern and western areas, he says, and from outside Libya. This afternoon, Canada announced an additional $5 million in funding to humanitarian partners on the ground. Geneviève Beauchemin, CTV News, Montreal.
The Prime Minister hosted Portugal's president in Toronto today, both men praising members of the diaspora.
Discovering a new world, a new language, a new great country. So you are heroes. Thank you for what you did for Portugal. Portugal is well respected here because of you.
The history of the Portuguese Canadians here in Toronto and across the country isn't on these walls here. It's right here in this room with business leaders, community leaders, political leaders, leaders from the entertainment industry, people who understand how deeply the richness of Canada comes from its diversity.
The two leaders were joined by Mayor Olivia Chow at a Portuguese art exhibit at Metro Hall. The president's visit marks the 70th anniversary of the arrival of the first significant wave of Portuguese immigrants in Canada.
Members of the GTA's Jewish community will begin celebrating the high holidays tonight. It starts with Rosh Hashanah at sundown. In Jerusalem, people headed to the market today in preparation for the Jewish New Year. It lasts until Sunday evening. The holiday season ends with Yom Kippur, the holiest day on the Jewish calendar. The Day of Atonement, it begins at sunset on Sunday, September 24th, and ends the following evening.
Next to a bizarre story in the nation's capital, a man allegedly trying to take off, quite literally, with a plane.
The would-be thief barely getting off the ground. CTV's Tyler Fleming has more.
The runways are clear and air traffic has resumed after a 64-year-old man allegedly stole an airplane attempting a fly-by-flight at the Rockcliffe Airport. It happened on Thursday just after 6:30 p.m. Whatever the intention was, it failed. The privately owned plane did take to the air, but it wasn't for long, crashing down, crushing the left wing and damaging two other planes in the process.
That's an earlier generation of Cessna, right? It was built in 1947.
Aviation expert Phil Dirty says pictures also show the propeller struck the ground, a likely indicator the thief-turned-pilot had little experience flying this style of aircraft.
The first thing you do is you push the nose down to get it to fly straight and level, and then you can take off. So it's a whole different characteristic of flying.
The man was arrested at the airport, transported to hospital with minor injuries, and is now facing multiple charges, including theft over $5,000. Canada's Transportation Safety Board has been notified of the incident and is coordinating with police to gather information, but will not be sending investigators. And while airplane theft is uncommon, as they are typically locked and parked in a secure location, Dirty says some aircraft knowledge would be required.
Well, you have to get the aircraft in the proper configuration. You have several controls, so you have to know which controls are doing what. But if you have a basic idea of an aircraft, of how it works, then it's not hard to get the airplane to start.
Tyler Fleming, CTV News.
Coming up, knocking down barriers and bodies. We step into the ring with a local pro wrestler on a mission to take on the world's best.
And I'm Pat Foran. Coming up on Consumer Alert, it's a household chore you may have to do this weekend, your laundry. You may be a pro around the washer and dryer, but if you're not, there could be some things you're getting wrong. Consumer Reports has some advice. That story is just ahead.
The weekend is here, and it's going to be a great one for getting outside. Sunny and on the warm side of seasonal for your Saturday. I do think we'll see an increase in cloud cover as the day goes on. That will follow us into Sunday. Of course, that's when many Canadians will be taking part in the Terry Fox Run. There are a few showers in the forecast Sunday, but they are likely to come a little later in the day. We'll take you through your weekend forecast and beyond coming up. And stay with us. We've got another full night of great shows for you right here on CTV.
The internet and social media are filled with laundry hacks that promise tips and tricks to get your clothes cleaner than ever.
But some of those so-called helpful tips could actually harm your clothes or even your washer and dryer. Pat Foran has our story on Consumer Alert. Pat.
Nathan and Michelle, many people are experts when it comes to doing the laundry, but not all of us are. Consumer Reports has some good advice to help you in the laundry room, whether you're a seasoned pro or a rookie around the washing machine. In some households, it may seem as though the loads of laundry will never stop. And even if you wash clothes every week, is there a chance you're doing it wrong? Rich Handel is Consumer Reports laundry expert.
I'm the person that does the laundry at home. My general advice, always check your washer's manual and look at the care labels on your clothes.
Handel says only use a dedicated laundry detergent in your washing machine. Never use vinegar, liquid soap, or dish detergent. Vinegar can damage the rubber seals and hoses in some washing machines, and dish soap.
You'll just end up with a huge sudsy mess in your machine.
Instead, always add the correct amount of detergent. That's about 1.5 ounces or 3 tablespoons. Too much can leave a residue on your clothes and in your machine, which can actually reduce its cleaning capabilities. And always separate your lights from your darks.
You always wash your whites together, but if you have a white item that's stained, do that separately, pre-clean it.
And keep heavy fabrics separate from your light ones. You don't want your jeans beating up your delicates. And always pre-treat stains.
Whenever you're dealing with a stain, pre-treat it. Put it in the wash. Check it when it comes out of the wash. Make sure you remove all of the stain, because if you put it in the dryer, it will set that stain, making it very difficult to remove.
And another tip, you can always use your laundry detergent as a stain pre-treatment. And if you want to save money, skip the fabric softener. It can leave a layer of residue on your clothes, irritate sensitive skin, and reduce the absorption of your towels. Following these steps can help make you a pro in the laundry room. And Consumer Reports says think twice about using bleach. It's a harsh chemical that can break down your fabrics over time. Researchers say for your whites, consider an oxidizing detergent instead. On your side, I'm Pat Foran.
If you have a consumer story idea, email us at alert@ctv.ca.
It's technically still summer this weekend, and if you're looking for something to do, why not check out the world's largest rubber duck? The attraction is making its return at the Toronto Waterfront Festival. This event runs Saturday and Sunday along Queen's Quay, and crews, as you can see, spent hours today getting this giant duck set up, inflated, and ready for the public to see.
She is 30,000 pounds and 6 stories tall, 61 feet tall, and she will be nesting on land this year. She's a new and improved duck from the one that came in 2017, and so she will be nesting on land due to the new nature of her setup.
Organizers, there it is, all blown up, are expecting about 80 to 100,000 attendees to stop by. There will also be food, activities, and music on offer. Full details are at towaterfrontfest.com.
And community members will come together across the GTA and all of Canada on Sunday for the annual Terry Fox Run for Cancer Research. This year's theme is Dear Terry, encouraging Canadians to share how Fox's legacy inspires them today. You can find your local run at terryfox.org. Organizers say the run will go on rain or shine.
And it looks
Always
like
good.
the rain won't be a problem, which is really, really nice. The weekend, this is such a big weekend because it's still summer, so many plans, and you really are hoping that the weather cooperates, and it looks like it will.
Yeah, and there's a lot going on. I'm thinking about that big duck that is nesting.
Nathan's going to go look at the duck. He's got plans. I can see the wheels turning.
Yeah, I know you're excited to see the duck, along with many other Torontonians, and I'm happy to say that the forecast this weekend is looking pretty good for heading down to the Waterfront Festival and anything else that you maybe want to do, especially Saturday. Sunday, things do change a little bit. I don't want to discourage you from getting outdoors on Sunday. The temperature will be a little bit cooler, so perhaps that's a good thing. And overall, the next 7 days are looking pretty nice. Weather is brought to you by Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train. We will begin, though, with Hurricane Lee, still a Category 1 hurricane, making its final approach to the Maritimes. Landfall is expected anywhere from between Granville and New Brunswick and Shelburne County in Nova Scotia. So we can see the outflow already bringing some cloud to parts of the northeastern United States, along with Quebec and Ontario. The track of this storm, once again, shows landfall happening sometime tomorrow. This is mainly going to be a Saturday event for our friends in the Maritimes, with impacts starting to be felt ahead of landfall. Eventually, it becomes a post-tropical low. It's going to continue northward. There's a patchwork of weather watches and warnings here, including hurricane watches, tropical storm warnings, special weather statements, and of course, a concern in addition to the very strong winds. Heavy rainfall, storm surge, power outages will be a possibility as well. So there's Lee, not going to have a major impact on us. We're sort of stuck between two disturbances here. One is eventually going to bring us a little bit of active weather as we make our way through the weekend. Not for tomorrow morning. It is looking like a beautiful start to the day, maybe a little cool. We'll talk about that. There's the increase in cloud cover that we're expecting as we make our way into Saturday evening. Waking up to some cloud, hopefully some sunny breaks on Sunday morning. And then into the afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from, you might experience some afternoon showers. What's more likely, though, is that we'll get into some wet weather in the evening. This continues through the overnight and perhaps impacts your Monday as well. So keep the umbrella handy. 19 degrees is where we're at here in Toronto. It was a beautifully comfortable day today, especially under that sunshine. Once again, we're forecasting a low near 10 degrees. That's what we dropped to overnight last night. Tomorrow at a glance, daytime high 23. Let's talk about next week. There's that chance of showers for Monday. The rest of the week as we finish off the summer season looking pretty pleasant. That's your weather for now. Michelle, over to you.
Thanks, Lindsay. Well, the Toronto Argonauts can clinch first place in the East with a win tonight.
Can't get to it because they're in tempo.
The Grey Cup champs are in Montreal after securing a playoff spot last week. The 10-1 Argos are undefeated against the Alouettes this year. Kickoff is set for 7 o'clock.
Another key piece is now in place for Toronto's team in the Professional Women's Hockey League. Troy Ryan has been named head coach. Ryan led our women's national squad to Olympic gold in 2022 and back-to-back world titles in 2021 and 2022, as well as a world silver medal this year. The Nova Scotia native will continue to coach the Canadian women's team in addition to his new PWHL job.
Meantime, Canada's men's basketball team has made a significant jump in the world rankings. We moved up 9 spots after the bronze medal performance at the recent FIBA World Cup. Canada is now ranked 6th globally. The U.S. is number 1, followed by Spain and Germany in the 3rd spot.
Also tonight, could a cup of coffee or two lower your risk of anxiety or depression? The surprising findings from a new study on the caffeinated brew and its impact on mental health. While many people reach for a cup of Joe to wake up or stay alert, studies have shown it can also affect your mood.
Now, a new analysis suggests a specific amount of coffee is associated with lower risks of developing certain mental health conditions. Researchers compared data on more than 150,000 people in the United Kingdom. Those who drank 2 or 3 cups of coffee a day were determined to have the lowest risk of developing depression and anxiety. Their risk was reduced compared to people who had 1 or 2 cups or none at all. It was also lower than people who drank more than 6 cups a day. Researchers said caffeine is believed to be the key factor influencing mental health impacts from coffee. The study was published in Psychiatry Research.
Hugh Jackman and his wife, Deborah Lee Jackman, say they've decided to end their 27-year-long marriage. The pair released a joint statement saying they were blessed to share nearly 3 decades together. But they say they're separating to pursue their individual growth. The couple met in 1995 on the set of an Australian TV show. They married a year later and have 2 children together. The pair say they won't be saying anything else about the divorce.
Disney has released the first trailer for its reboot of the Goosebumps series.
Some weird stuff has been happening. Something's clearly wrong.
Goosebumps is based on the popular R.L. Stine novels. It follows teenagers investigating a mystery who soon uncover some dark secrets from their parents' past. The Disney Plus show follows a popular TV adaptation that aired back in the 90s. The new version is out October 13th.
Don't sit there. Those are Christian Lacroix pillows.
So we can't sit on the couch?
Not in jeans.
And speaking of reboots, the first trailer is also out for the upcoming Frasier streaming series. Kelsey Grammer returns as the radio host 30 years after the original show first aired. The reboot is set in Boston once again, but with a different cast of supporting characters. The new Frasier debuts October 12th.
While TIFF continues, more movies are hitting the big screen at regular cinemas, and there's a clear frontrunner for this weekend's box office.
I do not believe in psychics.
Come with me to a seance. Spot the con I can't.
Kenneth Branagh returns to direct and star as Detective Hercule Poirot in A Haunting in Venice. Variety reports the Agatha Christie adaptation will likely scare up $13 to $15 million U.S. in ticket sales, beating last weekend's winner, The Nun 2.
The Rolling Stones are releasing their first album in nearly 2 decades next month, and they're sharing new details on what to expect. The band announced their album Khaki Diamonds last week with the music video for Angry. The Rolling Stones have now revealed the full 12-song track list, including collaborations with Lady Gaga, Stevie Wonder, Paul McCartney, and Elton John. Billboard reports 2 tracks were recorded with late drummer Charlie Watts.
Some good news to share with you this evening if you're hoping to snag a ticket to Olivia Rodrigo's world tour. Soon after releasing her sophomore album Guts last week, the Grammy winner announced tour dates across North America and Europe, and today confirmed 18 more shows, including a second one in Toronto, March 30th. Fans can register for a chance to buy tickets on Sunday until Sunday.
Stars Tonight is brought to you by Who's Better? Nobody.
After the break, another shift in the newspaper landscape. Metroland does away with dozens of community newspapers and cuts hundreds of jobs.
You're very likely looking at partial shutdowns and idling of Canadian suppliers.
Updating our top stories, almost 13,000 U.S. auto workers are on strike. This marks the first time they've done so at all of the so-called Big Three American automakers. While plants here brace for possible impacts, Canada's auto workers are in their own labor talks with Ford Canada this weekend.
Toronto police have arrested a suspect in a violent incident on the TTC yesterday. Investigators say a man got into a dispute with fellow bus riders near Dufferin and Eglinton. He then allegedly threw bricks at other people and hit a man in the head. 28-year-old LJ Golden of Toronto was arrested on charges including assault with a weapon and failed to comply with probation order.
I have seen some of these machines, like the credit or debit, they can be spotty.
And how would you feel if the only way to pay for parking was with a mobile app? The city is considering a 1-year pilot project that would see pay and display machines removed on some downtown streets in favor of the Green P parking app. Critics say the move could negatively impact drivers who don't use smartphones.
Remember to keep up to date day and night through our website, ctvnewstoronto.ca, and by downloading the CTV News app. And if you have a news tip, photos, or video of breaking news, let us know.
On the markets, the Canadian dollar is trading down 4 points to 73.94 U.S. American benchmark oil increasing 41 cents to 90.02 a barrel. And the TSX Composite Index gaining 54 points, ending the day at 20,622.
Dozens of Ontario communities are set to lose their local print newspapers as Metroland Media Group announced a restructuring plan. Metroland is owned by the same parent company as the Toronto Star. Citing unsustainable financial losses, Nordstar says Metroland will drop its flyer business and switch community publications to a digital-only model. Metroland's daily newspapers, like the Hamilton Spectator, will stay in print. The Toronto Star isn't impacted. Metroland is shedding 605 jobs, or 60% of its workforce.
Home sales saw a decline across the country last month as higher interest rates rattled buyers. The Canadian Real Estate Association says there were more than 38,000 transactions in August, and that was down more than 4% compared to July, still up more than 5% year over year. Analysts say the slowdown in sales and an increase in listings shows demand and supply are continuing their return to better balance.
Metrolinx says upgrades on 2 of its Toronto GO stations are now complete. The transit agency shared images of upgrades at Milliken GO station, where there are new tunnels and bridges, and Agincourt GO station, where tracks and platforms have been renovated. The changes are part of upgrades along the Stouffville GO line and several others. Metrolinx says the ongoing work will make it possible to run 2-way, all-day GO train service.
Just ahead, we step into the ring with Casey Spinelli, the Ontario pro wrestler gearing up for an epic career-changing battle.
And a reminder, the CTV News at 6 podcast is available as a download every weeknight. And a special shout out to those of you listening to the newscast live on News Talk 1010.
Hey Toronto, I'm Nicole Cervinas.
And I'm Teddy Wilson, and welcome to Things to Know TO.
Each week, we shine a spotlight on a wide variety of local businesses, services, events, and initiatives from across the GTA.
And if you or your company would like to be featured, you can contact our team by email at thingstoknowto@bellmedia.ca.
And don't forget, join us on Saturday mornings on CP24, CTV, and CTV2.
And hey, why not follow us on social at Things to Know TO.
Finally tonight, meet the Ontario wrestler who's just one match away from the chance of a lifetime.
Stepping into the ring to battle for the opportunity to train with some of the world's best. CTV's Spencer Turcotte has her story.
From running the ropes to rolling in the ring, you don't want to mess with
Casey Spinelli!
Casey Spinelli in competition, often the heel or the bad guy.
If there's one thing that this mouth is good for, it's definitely entertaining.
On the outside, she's Natalie Chikoria. The 38-year-old knew before she could walk that wrestling was her future.
I've worked with WWE, I've worked with Impact Wrestling, I've worked with AEW, and I've worked with ROH.
She's wrestled around the world, but a Quebec-based competition on Sunday may be her biggest challenge yet. The Guelph wrestler has battled her way to the Wrestling Academy finals.
Casey Spinelli. Oh!
The winner will get 3 months of training at the Nightmare Factory Wrestling School in Atlanta. It's co-owned by World Wrestling Entertainment's Cody Rhodes.
And then you have Billy Gunn and his sons who come in and help train there, as well as Sean Spears, who's dropped in numerous times as well.
Aside from getting the chance to train with a WWE superstar, Spinelli also has her sights set on a $10,000 cash prize.
That's right. This weekend I'm going to lock it up and load it up.
This opportunity is hopefully going to open some doors so that the people on the other side who potentially could help me gain the access of doing such and making this a full-time gig.
Standing in her way is experienced wrestler Kat Von Hees, but it certainly won't be Spinelli's first career hurdle. She's had to navigate her way through what's historically been a male-dominated sport.
We don't have room for you on our roster. you can still help with the ring and come out to shows, but as for getting any work, we just don't have it for you.
Fitting that we caught up with her at Canada's first female-owned professional wrestling academy, Off the Ropes, used to knocking down barriers and bodies. So as Spinelli looks to pin her next opponent, she's hoping it'll help her pin down a permanent contract.
I'm Casey Spinelli, and somebody someday is going to see me and say, we want her. And I'm hoping with this opportunity, that's what it is.
Spencer Turcotte, CTV News.
You know, Spencer Turcotte is just fine.
He's fine. Best reporter stand-up ever.
Yeah, that's called getting involved with the story. And we're going to get involved with your forecast one more time. Tonight, we're looking at decently cool temperatures. You know, this morning it was 2 degrees in Peterborough. It won't be quite as cold tomorrow morning in Toronto. There's a look at what you're waking up to. In the afternoon, forecast daytime high 23. And one more look at your 7-day forecast. Fall officially arrives not this Saturday, but the following. And a reminder about the new Lotto 649 with 2 big jackpots to be won on 1 ticket. Saturday's classic jackpot, $5 million, and the new Gold Ball jackpot is $62 million. You can head to olg.ca for more information. Nathan and Michelle.
Thanks, Lindsay. And that's it for us. But be sure to join Heather Wright tonight at 11 for CTV National News, followed by Zoraida Allman with our next local newscast at 11:30.
In the meantime, our coverage continues anytime on CP24 and online at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Lindsay Morrison and all of us here at CTV News, thank you for watching and have a great night.